had been bombed in Oklahoma City. A lot of us experienced this one was on 9/11. I was in college at the time, and I was going from one class to the next class, and there started to be a mumble of rumors that something was happening in New York City, and some of us went down to a commons area where there was a TV, and I got there just in time to see the second plane running into one of the buildings, and you knew that for the whole world, nothing was going to be the same after that. I can remember the moment after college that I had been doing ministry work all summer, and I came back home, and Devin and I had been dating, and I opened up the door to greet Devin, and I knew in that moment, like it's still burned in my mind that in that moment, I knew she was going to be my wife. Like she went from a girl that I was dating and somebody I was looking forward to seeing and a friend to she was my wife at that moment. It was going to be anything I could do, I would be willing to sacrifice for that to happen. I can remember whenever we were living in New Orleans and we were told the hurricane that was coming was going to be changing trajectories towards us. And we left for hurricanes all the time whenever we lived in New Orleans. But I remember watching the TV from my uncle's house in Texas and watching the levee start to break and learn that everything we had planned and been building up in New Orleans was gone, and we lost everything. I can remember, and we talked about this, I think, last week, the birth of my first child, and realizing driving home that I'm a dad now, and all those things that change. And I mean, the one that recently that happened that we all experienced was COVID. And I can remember wanting to watch because my mom's a big fan of the Thunder in Oklahoma City. And of course, we're Jazz fans, and the Jazz were good back then. I don't know if you can remember that, but we won games once. And I was wanting to follow the game and see what was going on. And, you know, the game was getting ready to start, and everybody left. And my mom was at the game, and I called her and said, "What's going on?" She goes, "I don't know what's happening. Like, this is weird. They're not giving us clear instructions, but we're now being told to leave." And it was after that moment we all realized something was going to change. And just days later, weirdness started to take place. Those are mine, but all of you have things in your life where you woke up that morning prepared to have a day that you thought you were going to go to have. And then by the time you went to sleep that night, you knew everything about your world and what you thought was going to be true, and the plans that you had made had changed. And I want you to resonate with the disciples in that, in the experience that they're having. These were men who were fishermen. They were tax collectors. They were nobodies. They were kind of on the fringes of society, but in an area of the world that wasn't even considered that amazing. And they had all at one point made this decision to follow Jesus. And we know just on some of the last couple of chapters, the night that they're having, that Jesus is trying to prepare them for what's going to take place. And they can't comprehend it. They don't understand it because it's so far beyond them. And these men, they had been hoping that maybe this was going to be a political revolution, and that they were going to have high positions within this new political kingdom that Jesus was going to bring. Maybe it was going to be a religious movement, and they're thinking, man, we're next to somebody. There's something happening. We are next to him, and because we're next to him, we're going to have high positions. We went from low to high, and then this night happens. And so let's start reading here in John chapter 18. And we're going to start off reading verses 1 through 9 in John chapter 18. Verse 1. After Jesus had said these things, he went out with his disciples across the Kidron Valley, where there was a garden, and he and his disciples went into it. Judas, who betrayed him, also knew the place because Jesus often met there with his disciples. So Judas took a company of soldiers and some officials from the chief priest and the Pharisees and came there with lanterns, torches, and weapons. Then Jesus, knowing everything that was about to happen to him, went out and said to them, "Who is it that you're seeking?" "Jesus of Nazareth," they answered. "I am he," Jesus told them. Judas, who betrayed him, was also standing with them. When Jesus told them, "I am he," they stepped back and fell to the ground. Then he asked them again, "Who is it that you're seeking?" "Jesus of Nazareth," they said. "I told you I am he," Jesus replied. "So if you're looking for me, let these men go." This was to fulfill the words that he had said, "I have not lost one of those you have given me." Then Simon, verse 9, stopping there. In this collapse of what's taking place, Jesus is steady. Jesus is steady in this moment. The scene is chaotic. John puts a different spin on this than the other gospel writers. And this is the Garden of Gethsemane. And the other gospels, so there's 4 gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they have a lot of similarities in the way they handle this. But John writes this well after the other gospels would have been written. And John was a close disciple of Jesus, and he wanted people to know the Jesus that he knew. And all the gospels are true and accurate, but they all take a little bit different perspective. And I love John's perspective in this moment, because the other gospels present Jesus more as a lamb to slaughter, a sacrifice that he's making. And, he's soft and he's beautiful. But in the book of John, Jesus is God. Jesus is fully in control of this moment. The chaos that they're in this garden at night, and here's men comes with lights and torches and lanterns and weapons, and what was a quiet evening of prayer is now loudly, abruptly awakened, and there's one of his disciples, Judas, leading these soldiers and these men to him. And you see just this chaos in this moment. You can imagine the fear on the disciples with what's happening, what's Judas doing. But I love it because it says Jesus knew everything that was happening to him. And everything moves and is guided by Jesus. They ask, just ask them, "Who is it that you're looking for?" And they said, "Jesus of Nazareth." And John loves this term. He's used it 7 times up to this point, connecting him back to God with Moses in the burning bush. And they say, "We're looking for Jesus of Nazareth." And Jesus says, "I am he. I am he." And how did they respond? It says they fell back and fell to the ground. At his words that this is me, they fell back. Jesus is in control of everything that is going on. In the collapse that's happening and everything that's going forward, Jesus is God. He is the creator of the world. He is the one that's orchestrated everything. And in this moment, they are not taking him against his will. They are not arresting him. He is giving himself to them. And he is controlling everything that is happening. He says to them, "You don't touch these other men. You're just taking me." He has to tell them, "Come and get me." He knows everything that's happening and taking place. And whenever your world collapses, it can feel like everything has been lost. Like there's no order to anything. But in that moment, Jesus is still Jesus. And he has always been in control. And in that moment, he is still in control. All right, now let's go to verses 10 and 11. For a lot of us, this is some of our favorite verses in the Bible. Verses 10 and 11. Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. And at that, Jesus said to Peter, "Put your sword away. I am Am I not to drink the cup the Father has given me? Okay. I live in Utah. All right. We don't ask people what weapons they're carrying on them right now. I know some men here, the way they would love to serve Jesus is whenever Jesus is getting arrested, whenever Jesus is getting attacked, I am going to step up. I have been trained for this. I have been prepared for this. I have worked out. I have the resources to do it. I am ready to roll. I don't get any amens from any dudes in here. I know you guys. Like, you're like, man, if I had this chance to be like Peter right here, I would do this. There you go. Thank you. In the chaos of it all, Jesus is in control, and Peter has been waiting. He's been waiting for his moment. He's been waiting for his opportunity that he can do what he's been ready to do. Largely, scholars believe that Peter was part of a zealot group who had been praying, preparing for somebody to overtake the Roman government and be able to put Israel back in charge of Israel. And for many scholars, they believe that Peter, being part of this movement, he was following Jesus because he thought Jesus was going to lead this military advancement to overtake this government. And Peter just knows it. It's happening. Now is the time. And as the chaos starts to unfold and these men come forward to arrest Jesus, the image I have in my mind is Peter pulls out his sword, pushes Jesus to the side and says, Jesus, I got this. I know what to do. Takes out his sword and slashes at the man. And fortunately for the man, he only cuts off his ear. We know from other gospels that Jesus then picks it up and replaces the ear. John doesn't care. Dude's ear's off. That's all he cares about. And Peter slices off his ear, probably just barely missing, with the intent probably to kill the man. In the chaos of it all, Jesus was steady, but Peter did what many of us do, and we start to react to the collapse. We start to react to the chaos, and we go to what we know. Many of us dudes in the room, we sometimes, speaking to myself, have a tendency in those moments to go from putting our trust and our hope in Jesus and knowing that he's steady in that environment to say, Jesus, give me a minute. I'll fix this thing, and then I'll give you back control. Okay? Ladies, that was not nice to laugh. I didn't hear any guys laughing. They're like, I understand this. The lady's like, uh-huh. Okay. But it's true. We have a tendency to do that instead of realizing that Jesus was already in control. Peter is reacting. Jesus knew everything that was going to happen, but Peter was acting in the little bit of information that he had, and he missed what was going on and what was taking place. We're going to come back to Peter in a minute. He's not done messing up yet. All right, let's go ahead and let's jump forward to verse 12. Let's go verse 12. We're going to continue looking at how this all unfolds. Then the company of soldiers, the commander and the Jewish officials arrested Jesus and tied him up. First, they led him to Annas, since he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who advised the Jews that it would be better for one man to die for the people. That's interesting, isn't it? Okay, verse 15. Simon Peter was following Jesus as another disciple. The disciple was an acquaintance of the high priest, so he went with Jesus into the priest's courtyard. But Peter remained standing outside by the door. So the other disciple, the one known to the high priest, went out and spoke to the girl who was the doorkeeper and brought Peter in. Then the servant girl, who was the doorkeeper, said to Peter, "You aren't one of this man's disciples too, are you?" "I am not," he said. Now the servants and the officials had made a charcoal fire because it was cold. They were standing there warming themselves, and Peter was standing with them warming himself. Verse 19. The high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and about his teachings. "I have spoken openly to the world," Jesus answered him. "I have always taught in the synagogue and in the temple where all the Jews gather, and I haven't spoken anything in secret. Why do you question me? Question those who heard what I told them. Look, they know what I said." When he said these things, one of the officials standing by slapped Jesus, saying, "Is this the way you answer the high priest?" "If I have spoken wrongly," Jesus answered him, "give me evidence about the wrong. But if rightly, why do you hit me?" Then Annas sent him and bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. So we're going to come back to Peter in a minute. But in this scene, this is Jesus. He was with God and partook with God in the creation of the world. Since he's been here on earth, largely his ministry has been about making much of God, communicating and teaching the scriptures, healing the blind. The lame are starting to walk. He's doing miracles. And these other entities that are currently in power, in control, begin to see Jesus as a threat, particularly the religious organization of that day, because what Jesus was teaching would be a threat to them and what they're doing. And Caiaphas, who advised the Jews, it's funny, in verse 14, he says, it'd be better for everybody. It'd be better to get this whole thing under control. Let's not fight a war. Let's just kill one man and destroy the whole thing. It'd be better for everyone. And what he said is so true, because Jesus, one man, died that we may all be able to live. He was punished for the sins of all of us and that we may be able to have life. But Caiaphas said in a different way, and he ends up before Annas. And this is a respectable man, but well below Jesus in everything. And he begins to question him. And Jesus says, I've spoke these things in, the synagogues. I've spoke these things openly. What evidence do you have that I have said anything wrong? And Jesus in this moment keeps the truth. I've been watching, you watch police stuff. You watch, I've been watching the Amanda Knox stuff. That's kind of been like a new series and stuff coming out about that, and the way in Italy that she was interrogated, and the way that through the interrogation she broke and she began to say things that weren't true because of just the intensity of it. Jesus is getting physically assaulted. He's being slapped. He's in an environment. He's been separated out. And it would have been so easy for him to start bending, but Jesus can't tell a lie. Jesus is truth, and Jesus tells truth, and he holds on to that truth even in the face of all of this. But let's keep going here to verse 25. We're going to come back to Peter. It's the difference between him and Jesus. Now Simon Peter was standing and warming himself, and they said to him, "You aren't one of his disciples too, are you?" He denied it and said, "No, I'm not." One of the high priest's servants, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, said, "Didn't I see you with him in the garden?" And Peter denied it again, and immediately a rooster crowed. If you go back to chapter 13, Peter had made a bold claim in the upper room during the Last Supper that he would die for Jesus. He made this great statement of you can count on me, Jesus. I'm going to be there for you. And Jesus said, "Peter, even you are going to deny me tonight. Tonight, you're going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows. Jesus kept the truth. Peter denied the truth. Jesus kept the truth even though that meant that he would end up being persecuted and die on the cross. Peter denies the truth to save himself from having to answer questions around this fire that he's in, that these people are part of. One of the things that as Christians, we need to be ready and willing to stand up for Jesus. Not stand up to protect him, but to stand up and say, we are Christians. We are part of this movement. Jesus is my Savior. And in fact, that's one of the signs of a Christian is that they don't deny him, but people know that you're a Christian. Know that you're a follower of Jesus. And here Peter denies him. The betrayal from Judas, the being arrested, and now even one of his closest disciples says, I don't even know the guy. I'm just here because there's a bunch of people, there's a fire, you guys look cool. Seems like a great place to hang out. I don't know what's going on. Jesus? Who's Jesus? Then the rooster crows. The rooster crowing is both a condemnation on Peter and Jesus' faithfulness. The rooster crowing is both a condemnation on Peter and Jesus' faithfulness. Jesus knew everything that was going to happen that night. Jesus knew that Peter was going to deny him. Jesus knew Judas was going to betray him. Jesus knew he was going to be arrested. Jesus knows that he's going to go towards the cross. Even in knowing that Peter was going to fail him in his time of need, Jesus still went. Jesus still went. Peter is one of the greatest figures in the Bible. Jesus is the disciple who saw Jesus most clearly and understood who he was before the others did. Peter is going to go on to be the lead of the early church. Peter messed up here, and God and Jesus does not expect us to be perfect. And even knowing that we are not going to be perfect, Jesus willingly goes to the cross for us. Jesus goes to the cross, endures what he's enduring, that Peter may be forgiven of denying him. You see that? Even in this, there's hope. Some takeaways from this for today. First, in your collapse, in your chaos of life that comes up, in those moments where everything you thought was true is no longer true and the ground from underneath you is pulled out from underneath you, notice who doesn't move. There is one in our world. There is one in our life. Whenever everything else is unsteady and we can't trust anything else, he doesn't move. He stays consistent. Put your focus on Jesus. Trust in him. Let him be the one that you trust in, not yourself. The next one is put it down. I'm referring to Peter's sword here. In the collapse of the moment, in the chaos of it all, don't look to yourself, don't look to your skills, don't look to your resources, don't look to your training, don't pull out your sword, but in that moment, put your sword down and lay on Jesus. He is there for you. He knew it was coming. He is prepared for it. He is not surprised by anything you have gone through, anything you will go through. And he is there for you in that moment. And don't feel like you have to take it, but put it down and trust in him. Keep the truth. Our world needs the truth. During moments of collapse, we as Christians need to be ready, willing, and able to declare Jesus rightly and boldly because they need that truth. And it's hard sometimes in those moments because it's easy for us to start to deny the truth because we get confused. If God is God and Jesus is Jesus, then why is this happening to me? And I get it. I've been there. But in that moment, there are others around us in our world, in our families, in our community, that they need somebody to remind them that Jesus is Jesus in this moment. So keep that truth and keep proclaiming it. And lastly is this: trust in his faithfulness. Trust in his faithfulness. The thing I want you to walk away from today's message remembering isn't as much who you need to be, what you need to do, what needs to change in your life. I want you to see Jesus for who he is. And I want you to see Jesus and how strong he is, how much he's in control, how much he is there for you, and for you to put your trust in his faithfulness, that he is going to continue the work that he has started. And the same Jesus that was in the garden as all this is taking place wants to be in your life and wants to be with you in that collapse. And here in just a moment, as a church, we're going to partake in something that we call the Lord's Supper, the communion. That's actually linked to this same night that Jesus is experiencing right here, where he was up in the upper room. And what we do whenever we experience that, what Jesus taught the disciples in that upper room moment, is that his body is going to be broken for us. That he is going to suffer, he is going to experience pain, that he is going to take a punishment that we deserve. And then he tells them with the wine, he tells them that his blood is going to be spilled. He pays a price. He does something. He takes our sin on himself and bears it. That does something for us that we can't do for ourselves. And in this moment, in this garden, as Peter pulls out his sword, he says to Peter, "Don't take away the cup that God has given to me. I came here for this. I came here to do this." And he offers that grace, that forgiveness to each of you, if you would just put your trust and your hope in him and the work that he did on the cross. Let's pray.